Hello students, let us now begin with the first subtopic, that is Euclid's definitions, axioms and postulates. Okay, so let us begin by understanding what is actually geometry. If you can see, the title of the chapter is Euclid's geometry, and under that we are going to learn about axioms and postulates, right? So let us actually understand what is geometry. Now, the word geometry has been derived from the Greek words, that is geo and metron. Okay, now what is geo? Geo means earth, right? What is metron? Metron is a Greek word for measurement. So, earth and measurement, which means geometry is nothing but the measurement of earth. Okay, so this is a branch of mathematics which is used for measuring earth. Okay, so in that we include different types of shapes and everything also, right? So this Euclid's geometry is one of the most ancient type of geometry which has been studied. Okay, now the need of measurement of earth was what brought about the need of putting up a subject called geometry. Now in the very ancient civilizations, in all the civilizations all over the world, this geometry was studied in different ways. The basic concept behind that was nothing but measurement. Okay, now there was a person called Euclid. Okay, he belonged to Alexandria in Egypt. Okay, that was the ancient Babylonian civilization. Okay, during around the around the 3rd and 4th century BC, what he did was he actually brought together all the concepts of geometry that he knew, and he wrote around 13 books. Okay, these 13 books were actually called the Elements. Now, all the knowledge that he knew about geometry was actually put up concisely in this collection that is called as the Elements. Okay, so that formed a basis for actual theoretical presentation of the geometrical applications which were used all over the world, right? Okay, so in this book called the Elements, this person called Euclid, he tried to define everything regarding geometry that he knew. Okay, now what happened in this process was there were some cyclic definitions which were happening. That is, for defining one particular thing he had to define something else, and to define that something else he had to define another particular term. So this was a cyclic process. Okay, so there he faced some problems. So in such conditions, what he did was he named them as universal truths. Okay, these universal truths were divided into axioms and postulates. Now I'm repeating this again. The universal truths which were included in geometry, they were divided into axioms and postulates. Now on what basis was this division performed? Right? So here, what are axioms? Axioms are nothing but which the universal truths which are common to all the branches of mathematics. Okay, now what are postulates? Postulates are those universal truths which are specific only to the branch of geometry. Can you see the difference? Axioms are those which are common to all the branches of mathematics, but postulates are those which are specific only to geometry, right? Okay. Now along with this, there is another term that we need to learn here, that is theorems or propositions. We are sure we come across a lot of theorems while we go ahead into our maths textbook, right? Now what are these called? What is this theorem or what is a proposition? Now, any statement for which a proof can be given is called either a theorem or a proposition. Most commonly, we call it as theorems. Okay, right. Now, in this chapter, actually, majorly, we are going to learn these Euclid's axioms and postulates. Okay, so let us begin by discussing the first axiom which was given by Euclid. The first axiom is that things which are equal to the same thing are equal to one another. Okay, so let us see this in the form of a statement so that you can remember it more easily. Okay, now here in this it is said that if A is equal to X and B is equal to X, then A is equal to B. Right? So things which are equal to the same thing, A and B are the things which are equal to the same thing which is X. So they are equal to one another. Let us understand more clearly with the help of an example. Okay. Now here you can see the cost of a pen is equal to the cost of 3 erasers. and the cost of 2 pencils is equal to the cost of 3 erasers, then the cost of a pen is equal to the cost of 2 pencils. Isn't that common sense? Yes. So this is one of the axioms given out by Euclid. Let us see the next one. The next axiom says if equals are added to equals, the wholes are equals. Okay, so what is this? Let us see this in the form of a statement. If A is equal to B and C is equal to D, equals are added to equals, which means A plus C is equal to B plus D. That's it. We are adding the two equations. We are getting A plus C equal to B plus D. So if equals are added to equals, the wholes are equals. Okay, right. So let us understand that with the help of an example. The speed of a car A is equal to the speed of another car B. Okay. Also, the speed of a train C is equal to the speed of another train D. Okay. Now, equals are added to equals. What do we do? Speed of car A is added to the speed of train C is equal to the speed of another car B added to the speed of another train D. Right? So, the sum of the speeds of the car A and that of the train C is equal to the sum of the speeds of the car B and that of train D. Right? Isn't that clear? Okay, let's go ahead to the next axiom. If equals are subtracted from equals, then the remainders are equal. Okay, now there we were speaking about the sum. Now we are speaking about the difference. Okay, right. So if A is equal to C and B is equal to D, now difference, right? So A minus B is equal to C minus D. That's it. Okay, so again let us take this with the help of an example. In a class, a mathematics test was conducted with 50 as maximum marks. Anuj and Chandra scored 45 marks each. Bharat and Daniel scored 40 marks each. So the difference between the marks scored by Anuj and Bharat is equal to the difference between the marks scored by Chandra and Daniel. Okay, so let the marks by Anuj be A, Chandra be C, Bharat be B, and Daniel be D. Okay, Anuj and Chandra scored 45 marks each. So Anuj and Chandra scored 45 marks each. Then Bharat and Daniel scored 40 marks each. Bharat and Daniel scored 40 marks each. Okay, the difference between the marks scored by Anuj and Bharat, difference between marks scored by Anuj and Bharat, how much is that? 45 minus 40, which is equal to 5, is equal to the difference between the marks scored by Chandra and Daniel. 45 minus 40 is 5. So if you can see A is equal to C and B is equal to D, then A minus B is equal to C minus D. Can you see that? Yes, this is a very good example for the third axiom. Let's move ahead. The fourth axiom says that things which coincide with one another are equal to one another. Okay, let's see. Let us consider two objects. Okay. Okay, then next step, let us try to put them one over the other. What is happening? Are they coinciding? Yes, you can't see the other one, right? So they are completely overlapping each other. That is, they are coinciding each other completely. So these are equal to one another. Okay, this particular axiom will actually come off very good to use when you move to the chapter of triangles. Okay, we shall recall the same axiom right over there also. Let's move ahead. The fifth axiom, the whole is greater than the part. Okay, let's take a very good example for this. Okay, you have a pizza, it has 8 slices. Okay, you're eating away 3 slices. How much is left? You have 5 slices left. So, don't you think 8 slices are greater than 5 slices? Yes, that's a very good example. Obviously, the whole is always greater than the part. Okay, now if A and B are 2 parts, then A plus B is greater than A. Isn't that true? Yes. Okay, so here there is an example. We are talking about a cake. So let us consider a cake which is cut into 2 pieces. One piece of the cake is individually lesser than the entire cake, or the entire cake is greater than the single piece of the cake. So can't you say that the whole is greater than the part? Yes, that is how it is, right? So that's what we were saying when we're talking about these. These are universal truths, and axioms are those which we are applying to all the branches of mathematics. Okay. When you come to postulates, we will be speaking about them only in particular with respect to geometry. Is that fine? Okay, let's see the next axiom. Things which are double of the same things are equal to one another. Okay, so let us take an example for this. If A is equal to 2x and B is equal to 2x, then A is equal to B. Right, so things which are double the same things are equal to one another. Let us understand this with the help of an example. Okay, now if the cost of an orange is twice the cost of an apple, first, what is it? The cost of an orange is twice the cost of an apple, and then the cost of a guava is twice the cost of the same apple. Okay, then can you say the cost of an orange is equal to the cost of the guava? Very true, that's how it works, right? Okay, so this is a very good example for that. Let us see the next axiom. Things which are halves of the same things are equal to one another. Okay, that is, if we have A is equal to x by 2 and B is equal to x by 2, can we say A is equal to B? Yes, we can say that, isn't it? Right. So let us take an example for that. The number of chocolates in a box A is equal to half the number of chocolates in another box B. Okay, the number of chocolates in a box C is also equal to half the number of chocolates in the same box B. Now, can we say that the number of chocolates in the box A is equal to the number of chocolates in box C? Yes, we can say that, right? So that's what we were saying when we mean things which are halves of the same things are equal to one another. I really hope this is clear. Okay, so these were all the Euclid's axioms. Let us now move on to the postulates. As we discussed earlier, postulates are those which are specific only to geometry. Okay, now the first postulate is, what can you see here? We have a line segment with two endpoints, right? So the first postulate here is a straight line may be drawn from any point to any other point. That is the first postulate. Okay, right. Let us see the next postulate. The same line segment with the endpoints A and B. Okay, now here you can see that we are extending on both the sides indefinitely. Right. So what does this postulate want to say? A line segment can be produced indefinitely in both the directions. Right? Okay. Let's see the third postulate. What do you see here? Here we have a circle with a center and some radius r. Okay, so this particular postulate says that a circle can be drawn with any center and any radius, right? You do not need a particular center and a particular radius to draw a circle. You can draw it any way that we want. We just need to have a center and a radius. Okay, right. The next one is the postulate 4. What can you see here? It is 90 degrees. Yes, if you consider a square, what is an angle in a square? It is 90 degrees. Okay, in a right angle triangle, the angle opposite to the hypotenuse, it is 90 degrees. Now we have different 90 degrees always, right? Different right angles. Are they all the same or is there any difference? There is no difference. They all measure the same. Okay, so thus we can say all the right angles are equal to one another. Okay, let's see the fifth postulate. Now I told you the fifth postulate is very interesting. Okay, let's have a look. It is very important, very interesting and very useful for us in the further chapters as well. Just have a very good look at it. Now we have two lines and a transversal which is cutting these two lines. Okay, that term transversal is what you will learn later on. Okay, so this transversal is intersecting with these two lines. Okay, now if you can see, these are the interior angles which are lying on the right hand side of the transversal. Okay, if we consider these two angles are lying on the left hand side of the transversal. These are interior angles which are lying on the left hand side of the transversal. The angles drawn in black are the interior angles on the right hand side of the transversal. Okay, now we are extending these lines in both the directions. What can you see? You can see that on one side the lines are meeting at a point but on the other side the lines will not meet how much ever you extend the lines, right? Now can we define this in any way? If you can observe carefully, the side at which the lines are meeting, if you calculate the sum of the interior angles on that side of the transversal, you can see that the sum of the angles will be less than 180 degrees. Okay, and if you look at these two angles, if you add these two angles, that is, if you add the measure of these two angles, the sum will surely be greater than 180 degrees. Okay, so let us articulate it properly. If a straight line intersects two other lines and the sum of the two interior angles, the sum of the two interior angles on one side of the line is less than 180 degrees, then the two lines produced sufficiently intersect on that side of on which the sum of the interior angles is less than 180 degrees. Is that fine? Now that is what we said. If the sum of the interior angles is less than 180 degrees, on that side of the transversal, if you try to extend the lines, what happens? The lines will meet at a point. Okay. But on the other side, how much ever you try to extend the lines, they will not meet at all. Okay, now here you can see when less than 180 degrees they are meeting at a point, greater than 180 degrees they are not meeting at a point. Now what if it is equal to 180 degrees? That we will learn later on. Okay, I hope you're clear with the postulates, the axioms, and everything we have discussed about the basics of Euclid's geometry. Thank you for watching this session.